Okay, so Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to continue in our Hilchot Shabbat in the Tzurba Mirabanan, volume 20, the Niyaza family volume. Tonight, Be'ezrat Hashem, the Shir is going to be Le'ilun Nishmat Meir ben Moshe. Nisham Moshe ben Leah go Chayil Chayil Gan Eden. Let's go to the Torah learning here today, and the brachot that we're going to say on the food that's been sponsored tonight. Le'ilun Nishmat. Meir ben Moshe. Okay, we are holding on page 40. No, not on page 40. I don't know, make this up. You're making up stuff. Okay, this is the 40th class. Ken. Page 35 is where we're holding. That's the new segment of the shir that we didn't see yet. But let us briefly do a quick review on the first part of the shir. So if you want to turn with me to page 56, where we have the Hazara over there. That's a nice review on page 56. Okay, so we're talking about taking a shower on Shabbat, washing. And we had the Gemara that told us you're not allowed to wash the entire body. You had an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, you had an opinion of Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Meir, and we came out that it's permissible to wash in cold, but not in hot. Okay? And then we also saw the Gemara that said you can't do the whole body. And you can't even do the whole body limb by limb, but rather just one of the other raglav, right? And that's what the Shulchan Aruch brought. And we saw that Chamei Teveria, although the Chachamim wanted to ask that also, they saw that people weren't listening, so they allowed the Chamei Teveria. But Chamei Teveria is only allowed if you never put the water into a keli. Once you put it into a keli, we would assume that people will get confused and think it's like any other fired, heated water. So really, there is no isser of washing in hot water, but it was a gezer because the attendants of the bathhouse started to wash it up, or started to heat it up on Shabbat. So, right, so the Rif told us that it's not a shvut, and it's not a mitzvah, and it's not a reshut, but rather it's a gezerah de rabbanan of not showering. And because of that, we found situations such as a mitzdayer, someone who is very uncomfortable, that perhaps he would be allowed to wash in hot water that's been prepared from before Shabbat on Shabbat if he's a mitzvah, because it's only gzeira and it's not a shvut fully. That was the Rif. That's number 6. Okay. All right. That was that. We talked about the hot water bottle. That today it's not a problem because it's closed up. And washing in cold water. Bottom of page 56. Washing in cold water. We saw there are issues of washing in cold water. It's not that simple. One of the issues is if the water is on you and you're walking with it, it's as you're doing hotza'ah, you're walking with it in Reshut Rabim or a karmel without an erev, it's going to be a problem. We did see that Lamaisa going into cold water is not an issue, at least according to the Shulchan Aruch. But the Ashkenazim, Trumat Hadeshim brought that they are machmer, and not even to take a cold shower, even on Shabbat, even on Yom Tov. It's brought down. Mishnah Barash, Mishnah Kilchata, or Moshe Feinstein. They all say the only time an Ashkenaz can take a cold shower on Shabbat Yom Tov, it's if they're very discomfort. They have a lot of discomfort. They're uncomfortable because of the very heat. Then they'd be allowed to. The Elkut Yosef writes that a person could take a cold shower. He has to be careful for a few things, but a cold shower was never gezerah on that, right? And that was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion in the Gemara. Hot, no. Cold, yes. That's pretty much what we saw last week. So now let us get into the new topic over here. Page 35. And number 1 starts as follows. You told me there's a gezerah, right? The rabbis put into a decree because of these guys who were heating up water on Shabbat, saying it was for Shabbat. How far did that decree go? Meaning, when a person goes into a mikvah, person going to a mikvah. I'm not going into the mikvah to shower. I'm going to the mikvah to get the tumah off for ritual reasons. Did the gezerah go that far to say any water, including water that you're going for ritual reasons and not for just to shower and to feel better? So says the Shulchan Aruch in source 22. It's based on the Gemara. We'll see the Gemara in a second. Person's allowed to go into a mikvah in order to get rid of his tumah on Shabbat. Now, there is a Gemara Masechet Bayah. The Gemara says, why can't I take a keli and put a keli into a mikvah on Shabbat? I have a new keli at home. I got it from a guy. So I need Tzvilat Kalim. And the halakha is you cannot do it on Shabbat. So why can't they do it? So the Gemara says, my tama. So like Rabbi Tzion said, Rabbi Amar, Mipnei shenira kimitakin keli. Because it looks like he's what? Fixing a vessel. You couldn't use it until now. And now it becomes usable. So it's mitakin keli, takin manasa, which is going to be a problem. You're not allowed to do it on Shabbat. So then the Gemara says, Ihachi Adam Nami. So to a person, he was Tuma, he's Mitame, right? He has Tuma on him. He can't do certain things, right? When the rituals were there, when they're, Tuma Mitzahara was there, he couldn't do certain things. Now he's going to go into the mikvah. What do you mean? It's Mitakin Keli. He's fixing himself. So it should also be Asar to go into the mikvah on Shabbat. It's like a Mitakin Keli for an Adam. So the Gemara answers, Adam Nira Kamikar. It looks like he is just cooling down. Meaning, when a guy is going to a mikvah, doesn't necessarily look like he's going to fix himself. He's going to cool down. He's going into a body of water. So,
I remember.
No, but in the sense of he couldn't do something now, and now he could do something, right? Like Tfilas Kalim. I couldn't use this Kali beforehand, right? And now I could. So this guy has Tuma on him. If he's a kain, maybe he can't eat truma, right? And now he goes to the mikvah. Now he could eat truma. Whatever the story is, whatever the thing, he changes the status. He's now mitaking himself, right? So Gemara says no, it's not really. It doesn't look like Tikkun Keli because when he goes into the water, he's looking like he's going to relax, which now comes out as follows. Number one, you have the Shulchan Aruch that says he's allowed to go into the mikvah on Shabbat. And presumably we're saying that the Gzeira doesn't go to the mikvah. Okay? Because he says Adam mutal to Masay b'Shabbos.
I think the Gzeira
and now we're saying that it's not Tikkun Keli. It's not like a Tikkun Keli. Okay, yeah.
The Gzeira what Chachamim they made on the bathhouse, because the people that are in charge of the bathhouse, they will make it. They will put a fire, especially for the people, just to make their name is good. Like
so, you're touching on a very good thing now.
Yeah, because our bathhouse is warm and hot and good, so they're becoming a. That's why they say they should not go because they might do it. Some people they might don't care about.
So we had the first source on page 25. It said well, he started with called Gufoy, right, and Bechamin b'Shabbos, right, without water to be cooked before Shabbat. Okay, we saw that you can't use it. So according to Rabbi Chaim, so you're telling me the Gzeira was the bathhouse, not the mikvah.
Yes.
So does that mean that I can go into a hot mikvah on Shabbat?
Well, I tell you something. On those days, was no such a thing hot mikvah, unless you're gonna put fire.
Why not? Why they put fire? What's the problem?
Not? In Shabbat.
Wait.
Huh?
The bathhouse can get hot, so the mikvah can get hot. So can I go into a mikvah, hot mikvah on Shabbat? Okay, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at source. Look at source 24. This is the Yalkut Yosef. So this is halacha for Sfaradim. Let's take a look what he says. Mutter l'tov u'mayim tzoynim b'Shabbos. You're allowed to go into a cold mikvah on Shabbat. Chita says the air, right? You shouldn't come to squeezing out your hair. But when it comes to warm water, you should not go into the mikvah on Shabbat if it's warm water. Right? And it's better, don't go at all to mikvah on Shabbat. Because you're going into a chshash iser. It might be also to go in there. You're trying to do a nice minhag to go into a mikvah, you have no chiv to go into a mikvah.
Yeah.
You have no chiv to go into a mikvah.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to do a minhag, doing a nice minhag, going possibly to be over a malacha or derabanan.
Guys, I bought this.
I understand. You're reading the Alka Joseph or not? So listen and understand. He's telling you, going into a mikvah is a minhag toiv. Possibly what can happen when you're in there is being over a derabanan of not going into hot water and not squeezing out your hair and all these other things. So he says better not to go in.
So this,
So this
because of the gzera, right?
upon him. He says, however, you shouldn't protest by those who are mekel and they go into warm water on Shabbat. There's some people going into warm water on Shabbat. You don't have to protest.
He's not even saying hot water.
Right, he's not using lotion hot water. He's using warm water.
Warm water is
okay, so the Alka Joseph is very clear. The Shulchan Aruch, so that's the whole thing. How do you view the Shulchan Aruch? When the Shulchan Aruch said, Adam mutter l'tful mitzvosei b'Shabbos, which water was he talking about? He's talking about a cold water mikvah. Because how do you understand the Shulchan Aruch? The Shulchan Aruch understood that the Gzeir possibly meant always you can't go into hot water. And that's the way the Alka Joseph is learning. He's learning that you can't go into hot water. That is the Gzeira on all hot water. And even a mikvah hot water.
What's the kedusha of a shulchan? Go to cold water.
So it's not tikkun keli.
Most of the
It's
mikveh
not tikkun keli.
on those days used to be outside. It would be impossible to make a mikveh a warm mikveh. You know,
Here, I want to read here.
People, they always the mikveh was cold.
Listen to the lashon the way Rav Nachson puts it in his L'chayo Olamim over here on page 441 in the Sefer L'chayo Olamim. He writes as follows: a man may immerse in a mikvah on Shabbat, but only in cold water. Warm water, even water that's room temperature, may not be used. Okay, that's his lashon over here. So you want to go into mikvah on Shabbat? For Sfaradim, it should be cold mikvah.
Wow.
The mikvah
It's freezing there. I never went into it, but I was told it's very cold.
So who wants to go mikveh in Shabbat?
I told you last week already the story of Moshe, right? Rav Moshe had a driver. Rav Moshe Feinstein had a driver. And every Sunday morning when the driver was taking him back from Lower East Side to Staten Island Yeshiva, every Sunday morning, he used to tell him to take him to the mikvah. He didn't go Erev Shabbat, and he would only Sunday, right? And even though he fulfilled the mitzvah on Friday night, he didn't go to the mikvah until Sunday because he would not go to the mikvah on Shabbat. All right? So that was Rav Moshe. Don't go to mikvah on Shabbat. Take a look over here. Now, even further, here's another idea over here. Is that, let's take it to Bir Halacha. He says, okay, V'da oid, the imhu tar gomer. The guy's completely tar.
Yeah.
The rotze litval b'Shabbat b'shachim mishum toisefes kedusha. He's going into the mikvah not because he's tamei. He's going into the mikvah to get more kedusha.
Yeah.
And it's ein b'zeh mishum chash mitakin. There's no mitakin, not talking anything. He's already tar. But he writes, according to the Maral writes, if the woman is going not on her time, she should not go to the mikvah on Shabbos because of the concern of squeezing out her hair. The gam tefillah. Says the Bir Halacha, you know when you only can go to the mikvah? When you really need to go to the mikvah on Shabbat. If it's not a need to go to the mikvah, you should not go to the mikvah on Shabbat. Don't do Tosef Kedusha. Don't do that because you're going into problems of being Mechalel Shabbat by going in there. There's a malachot that can have a problem over here. We're talking even if it's cold. Even if it's cold, because you have the issue of squeezing out the hair. Yeah, the water from the hair. You have the issue of squeezing out the towel. You have different issues there. So So you want to stay away from the mikvah, even cold mikvah,
I have a
if it's not a
question.
tzarech.
I have a
Yeah.
question about mitaken.
Okay.
Okay. So if we all may meeting, right? There is no mitaken over here. I saw somebody even he has a mission coming out. Also, it's not mitaken because even though he is going to go to a mikveh, there's no trumo, there's no masro, there's no
Still,
these things like he needs to be. So he's going to be the same status he was before.
Right, but what about the woman who goes in for too much
The woman,
nida?
it's different.
Okay, so
the
how
Torah,
we let her go Friday night to a mikvah?
it's the Torah.
Because it's the tzarech.
Because
it's the tzarech.
I'm talking about the men.
Because it's the
I'm
tzarech.
talking about the men.
Right. So
men.
that's why we said men can only go into a cold mikvah.
So I'm saying, men, there is no tikkun. We said before metaken, but there is no tikkun because he's staying the same status he was.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're saying even if it's the same status, and if he goes up in his status, whatever you want to say it is, shouldn't do it because there's a lot of issues.
He didn't go.
He didn't go.
Sunday.
That's right. He went on Sunday.
So he couldn't, even though he was, let's say, he had a mission or whatever, and he went to the shul, he davened, everything,
Exactly.
and everything was fine for him.
All right. Very good. So now let's take a look at the woman. Good. So let's take a look at Shalosh Shuva or Letzion. He writes over here. We know it's forbidden to wash one's whole body in hot water. It's also. Even if it's not yatzah leather. All right. Unless they're completely right. It's
nice.
Right. It's no more hot.
It's not cold and not hot.
And he writes over here, according to Or Letzion, he held that yatzah leather's bow was 37 degrees. So he said less than 37 degrees. Otherwise, you can't go into them. Now, this is Dafka Mayim that got warmed up before Shabbat and then got cooler. But Mayim that got on Shabbat, you can't go into them at all unless they get completely cold. Now, the Noshim, they're allowed to go into the mikveh even if it's warm. That they should go to the mikvah bein hashmashot. They should go to the mikvah Friday night bein hashmashot before completely set. Right? Why? So let's take a look. Let's take a look here in the Yalkut Yosef.
Friday or Dino Shabbat?
That's exactly the Chal. Right? That's exactly why. Because we want to do that. Let's take a look. Here's the lashon here. Yeah.
There's no problem with sweeping the floor because nowadays most of the floors are
right.
But you could say the same thing here. You could say nowadays most of their own thermostat, they're all set. It's not like somebody has
still there's Xera. There's Xera.
There was Xera also. You might
no, there wasn't Xera. There was the reality of the situation. The reality changes. The situation changes. Here, there's Xera D'Rabbanan because of people may have warmed up water on Shabbat, saying there's oil before Shabbat. So the Xera applies throughout. If you're learning it this way, even on a mikvah. Now let's take a look here in the Yalkut Yosef. He writes as follows: outside of the Tzurba for a moment. I'm just going to read it to you. Women who are scheduled to immerse in a mikvah on Friday evening may immerse in the mikvah of hot water during Benish Mashot. So if they want to go to the mikvah, it's hot, they should go during Benish Mashot, which is the first 13.5 seasonal minutes after sunset. Okay? Although Shabbat has already gone by sunset, the prohibition that our sages enacted against bathing in hot water does not begin until tzit. So this gezerah de Rabbanan of not going into hot water on Shabbat, that only starts at tzit kochavim. Not between Shkia and Tzedek Kochavim. That's why Benish Mashot, they're allowed to go into the mikvah at that time. Now, what happens if she's not able to go during Benish Mashot? She may immerse in hot water even later. She should not say, okay, I'm not going to go Friday night, right? She said, I'm not going to go Friday night. I want to be machmer and not go Friday night into a mikvah. She shouldn't say that. In such a case, she can rely on the opinion of the poskim, a rule that a woman is always permitted to immerse in a hot water mikvah on Shabbat. And certainly if it's only warm. He says, better if she can attempt to immerse within 58.5 seasonal minutes after sunset. Why that? 58.5. Shitas Rabbeinu Tam. Right? Shitas Rabbeinu Tam, until 58.5 minutes, it's still daytime. All right. So therefore, at least you have that shita. Other than the time that it's still daytime, and then we'll be okay according to that shita to go into the hot water. So better to do it that way if you're late already.
Why are you saying less? Betzet. Do it in Tzet Kochavim. It's
Hard
even
said the
before.
Kochavim,
It's
but
even
it's not
before.
Sekol Chavim or Rabbeinu Tam yet.
No, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So it's still Friday.
Right, according to Rabbeinu Tam.
Yeah.
So that's why you say better to go at that point
Yeah.
than later on in the night. Okay. Right, right. Okay. In any case, she must take care not to squeeze water from her hair. So what's the advice? Wait a few minutes so that the bulk of the water will drip out before she begins to dry herself. So you have to make sure that the water comes off you.
I don't understand.
Now,
The tefillah for Isha is from the Torah.
Okay.
And over here we have Rabbanan. And we are so worried about Rabbanan and we're not worried about the tefillah min Torah.
but squeezing here is not the Rabbanan. Squeezing is the right. That's the
It's
malacha.
not really
Schita.
squeezing. It's not really squeezing.
We'll see if hair is
Because
not
hair,
squeezing or not.
hair it's, you know.
But we're not going to say go and do whatever you want now.
No,
Tzarech.
I
You have to
understand.
do everything the right
I
way.
understand,
Okay.
but I'm
Now here's
saying,
the question as follows: what happens if the woman was supposed to go to mikvah Wednesday or Thursday, or whatever, earlier in the week, and she didn't go, and now it's Friday night, and she wants to go? You tell her it's okay to go into the hot water or not. There are poskim who ruled that if a woman was supposed to go during the week, but she didn't, and she waited till Shabbat,
she's not going to have shalom.
some poskim say
Right.
she's not allowed to go into the mikvah on Shabbat.
Some.
There's no tzarech.
Some.
Our custom, our minhag, says Yakut Yosef,
Go.
is to permit this.
Exactly.
This is the ruling of Shulchan Aruch. Okay. So Lamaisa comes out that a woman is allowed to go to the mikvah on Friday night, even if it's a hot mikvah, preferably to go Benesh Mashot. She can't make it before Benesh Mashot. She should go at least 58.5 seasonal minutes after Shkia. And even if that didn't happen, she still has a right to go into a hot mikvah. She just has to be careful about squeezing the hair and other malachot that are related to that. Okay? So far, so good. All right, now comes the other side of the coin. Source 27 on page 37. The Carbon Nitano. The Carbon Nitano wanted to understand that the Gezerah of the Rabbanan of not going into hot water on Shabbat did not apply to mikvah.
Yeah.
It only applies to showering and baths and stuff like that.
Right.
But not to the process of mikvah. So he writes over here, Ketafti barichos shtvilas mei mikvah b'chamen lohavi b'chlal gezeres. It's not part of the gezeres maratzot of the washing.
Yeah.
So therefore, according to the Carbon Nitano, you would be allowed to go into a hot mikvah, even a man.
Yeah.
Because the gezerah did not go on mikvot.
Because they used to
So
make
they would
money.
understand the Shulchan Aruch had saying, "Under mutar l'tvol v'tumasay b'Shabbos," meaning you're allowed to go in any mikvah. So how far do you see the gezerah going? That's the real question over here.
You find the Chazal made a gezerah, but they said for mitzvah it doesn't apply. Not just here, in general.
Right.
There is a
So perhaps the Carbon Nitano is saying like that. Yeah. Saying it for this mitzvah of going to the mikvah. Should it be a problem?
I think also the merchatzaot, the people that own the merchatzaot, they make money. Anybody wants to go in has
You
to
don't
pay.
make money in a mikvah?
And the mikvah, I don't know.
No, I went.
I don't know about the mikvah.
I went Erev Yom Kippur. I think it was $10. Right? It's,
No, but this,
everybody went to Erev Yom Kippur.
no,
They made a nice money there.
For women in Shabbat.
We went to the Shabbaton
Yeah.
with Bochai. It was $25.
$25. Yeah,
And
so
there's a lot of people there
Where?
in the mikvah by upstate.
Upstate?
okay. So there you go.
Basically,
It's
in the morning, it's
I was saying
$28.
it's a lot of
$10.
upkeep also to keep the mikvah, to make sure the mikvah stays kosher. and to put this you gotta put in the filter treatments to the waters and stuff like that.
A lot of
Yeah,
work there.
yeah. It's a lot to do. There's a lot of upkeep. There's a lot of water being used there also. It's costs money. Water, everything costs money. Yes. Okay. Now the Aruch HaShulchan, he writes on source 28. It's forbidden to go to the mikvah on Shabbat evening, even after dark, when the mikvah is very hot, because washing the whole body is forbidden. Rather, it's appropriate to be sure that the water is warm. So he's not going like the Korban Netanel. He's saying you cannot go in the hot. The Gzeirah goes even on the mikvah, like we saw for Chamavadia and others. But as long as it's just not hot anymore, he says it's okay to go in. If it's not yet selected, well.
But he said for shrimp, it's no problem.
Yeah, for sure, no problem.
He said for shrimp. He said only if it's very,
Very hot. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas Chamavadia was even warm water you shouldn't go
Right.
into. Right? So you have these different levels. You have Chamavadia, only cold water. You shouldn't go into anything warm. For men, we're talking right now. Only cold. You have the Aruch HaShulchan that says warm is okay, not a problem. You have the Korban Netanel that says hot. There's no issue either. There's no Gzeirah there. So there's different opinions. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. He says to warm up the mikvah, it should just be warm. He says if otherwise it's also to go into, says the Mishnah Berurah. If it's hot, you can't go into, says the Mishnah Berurah. It has to be warm.
Heated or not? Heated and heated.
No, because it's only considered an issue of bishul when it's yad soledet bo. Our whole problem is that they're warming it up on Shabbat and they're doing bishul. It's not bishul until it gets yad soledet bo. So if it's just warm, it's not yad soledet bo, and it wouldn't be a problem. However, in the Shah HaTziyun of the Mishnah Berurah of the Mishnah Berurah, he writes, "Kol makom yesh lismoich ve'esat chag ala korban netanel ve'gam b'sefer Chesed Abraham da'ato korban netanel." So there are opinions. Chesed Abraham, you have the korban netanel that say what? When you need it, you can go into.
The mikveh is no problem.
When you korban netanel says no problem, but the Mishnah Berurah is saying that if you need to, you have what to rely on, and that's what Chamavaji says as well. If the woman needs to go into the mikvah, she can go into hot. So comes out for mikvahot. What did we come out with? Number one, we're not entirely sure how far the gzeira of not going into hot water or using hot water on Shabbat for the whole body goes. Okay, we know you could go into the mikvah. It's not considered tikkun keli. It's not considered fixing up. Just don't know how far the gzeira goes. So there are those opinions, and this is going to be Chamavadia, the Or L'Tzion, that understand that the gzeira does apply on mikvahot, and therefore you cannot go into a mikvah unless it is cold. Okay, and Chamavadia says it's better not to go into the mikvah at all, even if it's cold, because you have other isurim that might be involved, squeezing out the hair, squeezing out the towel, whatever it is. Okay, and he says don't do a minhag toiv, and then you're going to have other issues with the ikar halacha. All right, then we had the idea when it's a tzarech, that's when we allow it. By a woman, we said, who has a tzarech to go to the mikveh as a nida, we said that what? Chamavadia said best is what time she goes within the first 13.5 seasonal minutes. Venish mashot. Where it's the gezerah of the Rabbanan only start at tzit about the going into the hot water. So as long as it's venish mashot, the gezerah didn't apply yet, they can go at that time. They didn't go at that time, then at least according to the Rabbeinu Tam, 58.5 minutes, they should go at that point. And if they didn't, since it's a tzarech, it's an etat chak, therefore, shasat chak, you would be able to rely on the korban netanel and the Chesed Abraham, and you would be able to go into hot water even on Shabbat. So much so, he said, even if the woman was supposed to go to mikveh earlier and she didn't, even then we would allow her to go on Shabbat, even into the hot water if need be. Okay, and then we had the Aruch HaShulchan that said warm water would be not an issue. Mishnah Berurah says if it's too hot, it's also to go in. But etat chak, again, you would be allowed to go in. Okay, that's
what
that part.
What about the woman?
Yeah.
We know such a thing like Mekabel Shabbat early, okay, and Adlakat Nerot. If
Right.
she Mekabel Shabbat, it is Shabbat for her now?
Right, so that goes back to our discussion all the time. When a person
You see,
when a person takes in Shabbat,
it's a hard thing.
but to take in Shabbat early,
Exactly.
is it really Shabbat? Did he change
Exactly.
reality, or is he
if
acting as it's
if
Shabbat.
it's a really
right?
Shabbat,
Well,
then it's good.
right.
Then she can go and the Friday afternoon, no Mechalel Shabbat.
We're taking the
nothing.
best of both worlds. All right, fine. Page 39. Now we're going to come to
Shabbat is Shabbat.
an interesting halakha over here. I'll just start it by saying most people we're going to come with a very big kula towards the end on page 40 from the Yalkut Yosef about babies and sick people and stuff like that, of how far what you can do on Shabbat about washing them. Listen, we were all alive a long time. Baruch Hashem, Hashem gave us a nice life, and we'll see that most of us never had to rely on this kula because it never became such a point that you have to do what he is allowing you to do. So let's start off.
I thought when I remember is that Yahud Yosef said you could even swim on Shabbat. You don't have no bathing suit on this. Like you had came out all this kulot, and then here it's like no, you cannot.
So swimming on Shabbat, I don't believe he says that it was okay. I mean, maybe theoretically be okay, but they say the swimming is like a of the chol. It's like a weekday activity, and we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't. Aside from that, okay, theoretically, yes.
Let's say I made the pool just for Shabbos.
What?
Let's say I made the pool just for Shabbos.
No, you're not allowed.
Because he's playing that maybe like that was not only a public place and that was a private pool that has the borders.
Yeah, theoretically, you can find ways that it'll be okay, but it's not done. It's not done. No one does swimming, and no one allows.
Every
swimming.
time.
No one allows swimming on Shabbat. Okay. Yeah, no swimming on Shabbat. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. We don't swim in Shabbat.
It was in Florida. He had back to the house. He had the food. He didn't say nothing to me.
Ask any competent authority. One of the main reasons. Okay, the whole thing we said going to the mikvah is only because it's a tzarech. Otherwise, you shouldn't be going in there. Okay, there's a lot of issues that could apply going into a body of water, and therefore you shouldn't do it. It's not done. It's not done. Ask any competent authority. They're all going to tell you he knows swimming. When? They can take a cold shower. Yeah, put on the cold water and rinse out if you feel like. Sure. Okay. Right. So we'll deal with soap shortly. We'll deal with soap. Okay. Let's start this one. Washing a baby. All right. Why would a baby be any different? So the Mishnah tells us that you're allowed to wash a baby on Shabbat before the Brit and after the Brit. And even allowed to wash up to the third day. Because maybe Yom Shlishi, we know that they were in a lot of pain when the people in Shechem did the Brit Milah. So the Mishnah is telling us you're allowed to wash a baby on Shabbat in hot water. So the Shulchan Aruch explains, what is this Gemara? What is this Mishnah telling us? The Shulchan Aruch says, "It's man chachmei Gemara. They didn't wash the infant with pnei hamila v'lachar mila of yom shlishi lemila the ma'im chamin. It would be a big sakana. You had to wash the baby. If you didn't wash the baby in hot water, it was sakana for the baby. Therefore, they wrote this halacha that that you're allowed to wash the baby on Shabbat. Whatever it was, they needed to do it. It was a sakana if you didn't do it, right? Whatever it was. But he writes, but today, no one does this bath, hot bath for a Brit Milah. No one's doing it before, no one's doing it after. So therefore, he says the showering of the baby is a showering like any other person. And therefore, you have to follow the same rules. No hot water, right? And unless it's just the face, hands, and feet, right? Not Rav Gufoy. And water from before Shabbat. Whatever the dinim for an adult is, the same din for the child, says the Shulchan Aruch.
We don't know.
What do you mean they wash?
That's the whole thing.
They wash the baby after he
Oh yeah.
They don't wash the baby.
No, they don't.
They wipe the baby down.
Only when you bring it home.
They wipe the baby down in the hospital.
Yes,
They don't wash
yes,
the baby.
They don't wash the baby.
They use wipes, special wipes. They just wipe the baby down. They don't wash them.
Also in the home, it takes about a week or maybe more until
Yeah, usually they tell you
wash
can't
the
bathe the
baby.
child until the umbilical cord
Yeah,
falls off.
yeah, until at least a week.
Yeah,
לפחות a
and
week,
sometimes a
or
week,
more.
sometimes it can take more. So
Yeah.
sometimes it can be a few
Right,
weeks.
Right.
So we're not really washing babies in hot water, since that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Then it had to be done. Today we don't do it, so therefore you have no permission to wash the baby any different than the adult when it comes to Shabbat. Okay, so the Orchot Shabbat now on source 33 on page 40, he writes, "What happens if it's necessary for the baby's health? Let's say it's needed to wash the baby. The skin's going to become irritated because of the moisture. So then one may be lenient to wash the baby in heated water as long as no other melacha is being done. So that means if you have water from before Shabbat, hot water from before Shabbat, and you want to wash the baby now on Shabbat, and there's a reason for it. Otherwise, the baby's going to be in trouble, some sort of trouble. Then it will be allowed to wash this baby, says the Orchot Shabbat. Okay, so water from before Shabbat, you need to wash the baby for whatever reason. You're allowed to wash the entire baby on Shabbat. And then he writes, if you have Shabbat and Yom Tov, and you can wait till and it can wait till Yom Tov rather than doing on Shabbat, then better to do it on Yom Tov and not on Shabbat. But he tells you here, the Chot Shabbat, that if you have a reason to wash the baby, okay, there has to be a reason to wash the baby. You can wash the baby with hot water that has been heated before Shabbat. Now the Akut Yosef is going to take this into another whole level. Okay.
It's not only baby, it's also any.
No, well, let's see how far he goes. Let's take a look. Let's read it. Source 34. He says the Isser V'gam Kotim. All right, like the Shulchan Aruch said. But then he writes, if the baby gets dirty, or it's your derech to wash him every day, you're allowed to wash him on Shabbat in hot water, and even in warm water. So even in hot water, even in warm water. Because if you wash him in cold water, it's going to get sick. So it's considered a mitzvah. Right? We saw that a mitzvah is allowed to use hot water for his whole body. Mitzvah is only Xera. So a mitzvah is allowed to use hot water. Even if the water is cooked before Shabbat, you're allowed to use it. So he says the cutting the same thing. It's considered a mitzvah. And if you wash him where he needs washing, you're allowed to wash him. Now he writes, now this is talking about, now if it's Shabbat, you have water that heated up by the sun. So that's also okay. But regarding electric boiler, right? Also, l'ishtamish b'Shabbos.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're cooking. But then he writes, and this is the real kicker over here. And then he writes, if there's no other efsherut acheret, efsher lehakel gam b'mayim shulchamu al yedei haboiler. If the water got cooked on Shabbat by a boiler and you have no other way to wash this child, it'll be okay. Sharei ena iser elam mitzad psik reisha. Chop psik reisha is through the rabbanon. Emuhuloi nicholoi. Welcome tsar ochayli shari. If he's sick or he's in tsar, it's okay. But tinuk kachayla, and a tinuk is like a chayla. So this is a very, very big kula. He's saying that you will be allowed to wash a baby. Okay, I don't know what the definition of a baby is or what tinuk is, but yeah, okay, it's a mokum tzarek. But he's saying you're allowed to turn on the faucet to hot water and wash the baby on Shabbat.
If it's a big toilet. Big toilet, it's a big toilet.
Yeah.
But it's a
situation
because when he opens,
and it's a tzarech for a chayli, and for a chayli, and you'll be allowed to do it. Again, I've seen lived all my life so far, Baruch Hashem, and I've never seen anybody actually use this kula, because I don't think we've ever come to this point where you say you have to take the shower at this time. Most kids, first of all, don't like showers, right? They try to stay away showers and stuff like that. And I don't know, Tinok, I don't know how much showers you give them and how much hot water you're giving them.
But maybe he needs it.
Most people also have a custom to make sure to take a shower on Friday. Everyone gets in on Friday, so you don't need anything Friday night, does it? To that degree that he needs washing. I hear.
Cold water doesn't.
Have you ever used this cooler to turn on the hot water faucet? I don't know. The hot water faucet doesn't turn on Shabbat. I just can't get the turn.
But it is secondary, like you
So
said.
even if I know this, it'll be very hard. Knowing this halakha is one thing. Going and actually doing it is the second thing. I think most people want to do it.
Rabbi Shimon said there's no problem at all. Rabbi Shimon said no
Right,
problem.
but he's
at all.
talking about water that was cooked before Shabbat. He's saying over here that you're allowed to even use water that cooked on
Yeah,
Shabbat,
but he's not
and you're
really-
allowed to turn on the faucet to do it
he's
from a
not
boiler.
Really cooking it. He's just opening the thing.
Now there's one caveat over here. One caveat over here. He writes. Now this is only true. He writes over here in the bottom over here, outside the Tzurba. He writes, if the person has no plans of using more hot water later, okay, and therefore he has no interest in the water that flows into the tank at this time. If he actually does like the fact that new water is going in, and it's forbidden to use hot water even in these cases, because it has to be secretional nichale. I don't care about it. I don't want it. But if it's nichale, the guy likes the new hot water is there. He can use more hot water. He has more hot water. I don't know later. That's what he writes. Okay.
אתה לא עושה את זה בכדי, אתה עושה את זה בכדי בשביל הבייבי, אתה לא עושה את זה בשביל להתחמם בזה, או, אני יותר ממך, אני על מו...
If you are doing that, he's saying that'll be a problem.
בצורה אחרת. כלומר, המים שאתה מבזבז עכשיו, זה כבר התבשלו מזמן. עכשיו, המים החדשים, זה מתבשל עכשיו בשבת. אבל אתה שמח שזה מתבשל, למה אתה רוצה את זה אחר כך?
לא, אתה רוצה את הבייבי נקי.
לא.
So that's fine. That's good. But if you wanted it, then it'll be a problem. Okay, good. No one's looking at it. But if someone did look at it that, way, then it'd be a problem. If someone did, then that would be the
More
problem.
important to me the hot water than my baby being clean, or he should be well and not sick.
Yeah.
The guy
Hey,
is no.
Let's just end with it. Let's end this section with this. Have you ever used this cooler? Most people will say no. I don't think most people use
Cold
it.
water, but you put cold water in your hand, the cold water will warm up, and then you put it.
Right,
on
becomes your hand temperature.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's what we sometimes do. in the
Today,
summer.
when kids are getting soiled, people use wipes, and most
Exactly.
wipes are
I was
usually
just to say-
are not problematic
I was
because
just
they
to
are
say,
what's it called?
nobody
They're not
has
you're not
water
squeezing out and stuff like
anymore.
that.
Water.
So these things again,
Everything is white.
exactly like the Shulchan Aruch said. Shulchan Aruch said that today no one's doing this, therefore it's not permissible. It's the same idea. So Chabad is saying that if it need be, it's a tzarech, it's a chaylev, then it's okay.
30 degrees below.
Yeah,
Okay, and now you have the water faucet running, and you need to. clean the
I
baby.
agree with you. Yeah, sure.
This is the wipes are not going to do anything. It's freezing.
I
The
hear you.
baby is just born.
All right, good. Let's now start the next section. Steamy?
Not putting the baby inside. I just wanted to breathe it.
No, it's warm.
As the kid's sick, it's a different story. Okay, we're not talking about medicine right now, but that's a different story. If it's for sick and someone who's really sick and needs that, you should. Okay, I'll just say the steam. Most times, if it's really serious sickness, the steam is not going to help. You're going to need a steroid to open up the lungs. Say what? Tzaddik. Steam is not going to open up anything.
It's gonna.
Okay, steam is helpful, but it's not going to. In a case of sakana, it's not going to help. So therefore, you have to look at the status of what the kid is at that time. Steam is not so posh. I don't know. I don't see steam helping to that degree that I would say on Shabbat you can open up the boiler with that.
Just talking about an adult.
If what you could do, if you wanted the steam, you can just go to the samovar, the urn, put some hot water into a bowl, throw the towel over you, and breathe into that way. That's the steam. Okay.
Yeah, but what do you make?
That would be a permissible way to do that on Shabbat. Okay. All right. Otherwise, if a guy really needs something to open up his lungs, he needs to have a steroid. It's not going to help him. Fine. Now we're going into using soap. Medicine.
Nebulizer.
Nebulizers, yes. Steroids are not narcotics.
What is the family?
It's not. It's albuterol, prednisone are steroids that help the body work better, helps the lung work better. It's not narcotic. Okay. All right. Now, using soap on Shabbat. Okay, first of all, you have three types of soap. We're going to define, Tzurba defines it with three types of soaps. You want to take a look at the picture of the three types of soaps?
Liquid.
turn to page 46. 46 gives you a picture of soaps. If you saw soap before, here you have it. You have here bar soap in the middle. That will be soap number 1 that we'll be dealing with.
Not allowed.
Then we have,
Bar.
let's take a look at the one on the right, soap paste. Okay, so this is a soap that comes out all foamy and creamish. Okay, and then you have your liquid soap. Okay, so we're gonna have to see, those are the 3 types of soaps. And now there are multiple. If you can, now if you you look, there's some issues that we'll have to deal with when looking at soap. Number 1, perhaps there's an issue of nolid, which is creating something that wasn't there. For example, if you have a solid bar, and then when you start using it, you're turning it into liquid, right? And you can have liquid and you're turning it into bubbles. Is that an issue? Okay, that's one issue. And then you have memareach, which is smoothing. Okay, so when you have a soap, you have a bar soap. The Torah Chaim tells us a bar soap is an issue because you are spreading it out. So what's okay? So there's 2 malachot. Let's just mention it really quickly. The av malacha is b'machek. B'machek is when you're smoothing something that's hard. Okay, take a wood, take leather, something that's hard and firm, and he's smoothing it to make it nice and straight. It was used in the Mikdash for the tanning process of the curtains and stuff like that. Now, memareach is the tolda, in which is also smoothing something, but something that's not as firm as wood and leather. Something that's pliable. It's something like wax and clay and putty and stuff like that you can smooth out. So that's the tolda of memachek. So you have memachek and you have memareach. So you have these two malachos over here. So it comes to soap. They want to say the Tiferet Yisrael said that solid soap, a soap bar, has the issue of the malacha of memachek, okay, of smoothing. Now, if you take a look at our soap bars today, take a soap bar. What are you smoothing when you're using it? What are you really smoothing? Is it really that hard? He says, since our bars of soap are smooth before and after they have been used, it's difficult to understand how the lathering of a hard soap falls under malacha of memachek, which entails smoothing a rough surface. There's nothing rough about a soap bar. You take a look at a soap bar; they're pretty smooth surface. So Rabbi Ribbiat says that he doesn't. Where is this issue of memachek when it comes to the soap bar? Wants to say that lathering has the effect of smoothing. Okay, taking the soap and now putting it on the hand, maybe that's the smoothing part he wants to say. And then he wants to say also that the earlier soaps were different.
Like Yeshiva, it said you had the bar of soap that had like pieces of like PC outside. It's not like smooth like
Right.
ivory,
I used to do laundry with Sintabon. In Kiryat when I used to
What was that? What type of?
type of soap.
that soap was very, very thick.
It was like PC.
So when you're using it, it was really smoothing it. Right. So that's what he wants to say. He says here the early day soaps were indeed comparable to like soft wax. Those soaps had a very rough surface that would become smoother with each use. So not like today's bar soaps. But there's still an issue of memarech of it's pliable and that's still a malacha. Okay, so that's that issue. What about liquid soaps? So you have the same idea when it comes to the foamy soaps. The foamy soaps also first you might have the issue of creating something, right? Of molid, you have something you're creating. You're taking a foam and you're making it into bubbles, and you're also spreading it out on your hands, and you're just smoothing it out. And it's pliable. It's like wax and putty. It's it's something that you can move around. So let's take a look now. We explained some of the outside things. Let's take a look inside right now. All right. So first, you want to deal with the issue of molid, of creating something. We have over here a Gemara Masechah Shabbat that tells us you cannot crush snow or hail on Shabbat to make its waters flow out. Right? You want to get water out of snow or out of hail, you can't crush it on Shabbat because you're creating something new that wasn't there. But you can place it into a cup or a dish and let it melt by itself, and that would be okay. All right? So based on this, you take a look at source number 36 on page 41. The Ramah says you cannot wash your hands with salt. And all the more so with something called lye, or it was a soap that they called in German Zief, or another cleansing agent made of fats. That would be similar to our soaps, which dissolves on one's hands. Because when you're dissolving it and it goes from one state into the other state, that is nolad, that is molad, that is creating something new on Shabbat. So says the Ramah, using these soaps would be a problem. If it goes from one state to another state, it would be a problem. He's talking about whatever soap they had at the time.
Liquid.
Zeef, or fats, or salt type of soaps.
It's not liquid.
Liquid.
In the old days, there was
Soaps that go from one state to the other.
Yeah. So how do they make soap? They make
no-
it out of fat.
In the old days, there was-
Out of fat.
Liquid.
Sabon.
Yeah, במה עושים סבון?
לא, אבל קשה. זה היה קשה.
לא, מי אמר קשה? זה liquid.
So it's not liquid. Look at the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says on page 42, source 37, the reason is as follows. As through washing, the salt dissolves, and the new entity is yielded. And this is similar to a malacha. The washing one's hands in salt waters, now this is the liquid. Right? You took the salt, you
No
took the
problem.
soap, and you made it watery,
No problem.
then it's permitted according to all opinions. Okay? So when you have it like a solid or a foam or something like that, and it's going from one state to the next state, that's going to be a problem, says the Ramah. You can't use that soap.
What about memarech? The liquid soap is not memarech?
So in order to, we'll see what smoothing is consisted of. It has to be something that's pliable, meaning it's like wax or putty or something like that, that you can actually smooth and put on. But if it's so liquidy that it just runs, that's not memarech. Okay?
Creamy, it's liquid.
Right.
It's creamy there.
And you're going to see there's a test of how you can tell the viscosity, which is the thickness of a liquid, right? Of how you can test it on Shabbat to see if that, according to those who say you can't use it straight up, we'll see. All right. Give me a few minutes. We're going to get there. We don't have a lot of time, but let's see. Okay. The Mishnah Berurah wants to say, hold on one second. He wants to say, squeezing snow and hail, you can't compare it to this case of using soap. Squeezing snow and hail is a precaution because maybe it looks like schita. It looks like you are squeezing grapes to get grape juice or whatever it is, right? It looks like that. But soaps and fats, which are not used for drinks, it's permitted lechatchila. So when you're creating something new with soap, says the Mishnah Berurah, it's not creating something new. It's not. The whole issue of creating something new is because it looks like chita. It looks like you're crushing something. Here it doesn't look like that, so it's not an issue. He writes. Then he writes that the case of our soap, which is soft, it's forbidden according to all opinions. You're talking about bar soap, which is soft bar soap. I similarly found in the book, he writes in the name of the Masei Rukeach, using soap is smoothing something firm and spreading something pliable. It's an ab melacha, and it's appropriate to caution the people particularly about this. Okay, then he writes that some of the soaps are so powerful they pull off hair. So that's another problem on Shabbat, pulling off hair. Fine. Take a look at source 40, Shemrat Shabbat Kilchata. And he writes, one may not wash with bar soap, whether hard or soft. Okay, whether it's a hard bar soap or a soft bar soap. As it is a problem of molid, you're creating something. You're going from one state to the other. But you can use liquid soap. That's what the Shemrat Shabbat Kilchata writes. You go to the next bold part, he writes, of the Tiferet Yisrael. The Tiferet Yisrael said you can't use bar soap. And he says, in his note, he says you have to look into this. Why is this? The Rambam understands smoothing something is spreading something until its surface becomes so smooth. And that's not what you're doing with soap. Right? And that's what he says the Yabia Omer says. You're not really smoothing anything. You're not making it smooth, trying to smooth it out. And they want to say that there is no nolad, nolad or molid when it comes to one state to the other. We already saw Sfardim are much more. We don't see nolad happening all the times. Like we don't see nolad being going from liquid to bubbles. We don't see that as being nolad. Okay, let's take a look about liquid soap. So we have bar soap so far. We saw there's some problems of smoothing, some problems of creating. What about liquid soap? So Rav Moshe said he didn't use liquid soap. He says, I don't know if liquid soap is permissible because they make bubbles. They make bubbles. They make soap suds. You're creating something new. And Rav Moshe wouldn't use it. And he writes, in my house, we don't use it. And it's proper to be machmer, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, not to use even liquid soap. They create bubbles. The kovetz teshuvot. Soap on Shabbat is a problem. Nolad, you're creating something. But if you have very liquidy soap, and it's like really water, then it should be permissible. He wants to write. So how far does it have to be? How liquid does it have to be according to the Ashkenazim? Chut Shani also writes to be strict, not to use liquid soap that is somewhat thick. You have to make it very runny, very, very runny. You got to open it up and dilute it. Hey, if you take a look at,
I understand why all the Jewish brands are there.
take a look at source 45. Rabbi Neustadt, ready, right? Short of using a viscometer, which is a measurement tool to see the thickness of the liquid, anyone can estimate the viscosity level of a particular liquid soap by how? Pouring some onto a level surface. Put some out onto the counter or something like that, or on the side of the sink. If the liquid spreads immediately, like when you put water, it spreads immediately, then the viscosity level is low, and you're allowed to use it on Shabbat. If whatever begins to pool, right, it stays in one spot, and it slowly spreads, but it doesn't go right away, then its viscosity level is high, and one should not use this product on Shabbat. So if you want to take a look, according to those who say even liquid soap might be a problem, it's only a problem if it's, Rav Moshe says it's always a problem. But according to other opinions, it's only a problem of how thick the soap is. But now we come to the main point here, which is the Yalkut Yosef. So we have the Yalkut Yosef in source 46 on page 46. All right, so this is what you got to take the takeaway. Takeaway when it comes to the soap issue. Yesh Omer also the in this type of soap is Shabbat with bar soap. Talking first about bar soap. The Yesh Matir, and there are those who permit it. Bar soap. The Sarim Shein said loy mishum machek, loy mishum reach, loy mishum nolad. There's nothing. All right, because the Rambam said you have to smooth it to make it smooth. You're not doing that with the bar soap. So really, bar soap is not a problem. But he says you shouldn't always just use it. I got bar soap, I'm going to use it. You're going to the Roifim for doctors or for the nurses who need to wash their hands continuously on Shabbat, taking care of patients. I mean, today you don't find bar soap in the hospitals anyway. But if you needed to wash their hands, then they were allowed to be using it. So Me'ikra Din, you're allowed to use a bar soap on Shabbat according to Chamavad. You're allowed to use a bar soap. There's no issues with it. Okay, but we don't look at it as no light. We don't look at it as that way. All right, we don't view it as being no light. However, in a case which one can be strict, it's good to be concerned for the position of those who say shouldn't use bar soap. But there's no reason to object to one who accepts the allowance. Okay, even when there is no need. So if you see someone using a bar soap on Shabbat, there's nothing to say. He's allowed to use it. You don't have to say nothing to him. But in any case, and now he says Ashkenazim are very strict in this. But in any case, it's permitted to wash with liquid soap on Shabbat, as mentioned above. So for Sephardim, for us, Halacha l'maaseh is Mikra Adin, you're allowed to use a bar soap on Shabbat. Okay? But
it says better.
we better not to, so it's better
Better
to
not to.
use liquid, and then we're not worried about the viscosity of it. It's not.
Someone
not
asked,
considered
are we allowed to use
anything.
foaming soap? And the chat,
It's-
somebody asked,
We're
foaming
not.
soap.
We're not viewing it as Nola. We're not viewing it as creating something.
Creamy.
You're not viewing it as spreading or smoothing either.
No, but the distance.
מה, אם אתה יכול בבר סופ,
It's not going to be an issue.
בסוף, זה, בפום. אבל הפום הוא כבר נוזלי גם כן.
לא, הוא לא נוזלי. הוא יושב לך.
בטח שהוא נוזלי.
ספרי אאוט.
אתה נוגע בו, עושה ככה, הכל זה...
Turns out that it looks like we're allowed to use all types of soap on Shabbat. It's a soap, we're washing, we're not creating anything, we're not spreading anything out. All types of soap produced on Shabbat. However, a person should be more machmer and should use a liquid soap rather